All right, welcome to Magneticore's Let's Talk, everybody. A couple of quick things. My name is Corey, and I'm here with three of the other Magneticore coaches. Sarah's here, Kim and Ginny are here with us, and we got a whole room full of people with us too. A couple quick things before we get started, since we're living a Zoom life. We are going to record this session, and so if y'all are uncomfortable being recorded, do us a favor and keep your camera turned off, and that will let us know. Like if we get to a conversation mode, we will not call on you as well. And then also, if everyone would be so kind and keep yourself muted, keep your mics turned off when you're not talking, just so that we can try to record the best sound quality that we can during the hour. Thank you so much for a little bit of that. That's awesome. I want to thank you all for coming today. Welcome home. Today we're going to be talking about tension. You know, we talk a lot about tension in our world and creating tension and what is tension in this world of self-help and choosing the world that we want to create and working on ourselves and working on our clients. And so we thought we would jump in and really just dig up some tension. Let's dig it up. Let's check it out. Let's understand it. And let's see just how far the ripple of tension goes. I think we can look backwards, you know, how we got here to where we are today with our beliefs and the actions that we put into the world and tension structures from the past, and what we're doing now, how we're changing that for the future. As we take action and take control and put consciousness into our use of tension for our full advantage. I want to bring Sarah into the conversation. Sarah, welcome to Let's Talk with Tension.
Thank you, Corey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as I was looking at, a lot of the webinars and a lot of the information out there, there's so much reference and use of that word tension. And I was just thinking, okay, but what does it really mean? Like, what is it exactly? Why do we care? I mean, really, you hear repetition, you hear all of these words, and then why should somebie care?
Yeah.
So to begin with, if we're talking about tension, the official definition of tension is a pulling force. It seeks resolution to change, the state of being pulled tight, mental or emotional strain, focus.
Right. Yeah, so
So
tension.
that's
Right.
tension.
Right. Sometimes we hear about tension and we think about, oh, my muscles are so tight. I am so tense in the world. I need a massage. I've hurt so much. I'm so tense. That's a
Or
similar.
better than that, you walk into a room and the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife.
Oh man.
Like
Yeah,
tense situations.
am I
And
interrupting?
so tense.
What's going on in here? Yeah, totally. And so, as you know, we were thinking about this and getting ready for this little exercise today, and we started, brainstorming around tension. And there's these other words that have the word tension in them. And the first one, of course, is intention. Intention. You know, we divide that up a little bit. Another one that we came up with was retention. You know, another one was unintentional. Another one was
My favorite one's when you thought of detention.
detention. Right. You know, and so in this
What?
new, I love that in this new world of tension and the creative mind, is that we're coming up with a new set of definitions for some of these old words. You know, like to detention. Let's take the tension level down, as opposed to after you're staying after school and you're in trouble, right?
Right?
A new definition for detention, a new definition for retention, to repeat or to reapply or to do again or to hold sacred, to hold it, repeat it.
Or
Right?
to reintroduce tension
Introduce. Thank you, Sarah.
purposefully, right?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of fun that word, even though it's spelled a little bit differently depending on which word is using that. But I think it's amazing just to think about the metaphors, the parallels, the parables as we choose our words. I think, our words are so very powerful in how we create in the world. as we choose our thoughts and we choose our sentences to create our realities, these words do appear in funny ways. Detention, intention, retention, those kinds of
You know,
things.
Corey, the circumstance or the situation that has so much tension around it are those love-hate relationships,
Yeah.
right? That
Well, yeah, totally. Totally.
I love
Yeah.
it, I hate it, I love hating it, I hate
Mhm.
loving it. It's just so full of the polarity, and you can really see that there's two sides, and what's in between is the tension.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. And I think before we kind of jump into the love-hate relationship example, is that I want to talk a little bit more, since we're still defining tension. I want to talk a little bit about um, what creative tension is and what design intention is. Now, creative intention, that's a situation where disagreement or discord ultimately gives rise to better ideas or outcomes, right? Let me say that again. So creative tension, a situation where disagreement or discord gives rise to better ideas or outcomes. So now we're putting intention into creative tension. We're using our ability to create to imply and to impose tension into our creation so that it can actually happen. I think that's kind of a cool thing. Um, Design intention. Now, these are things that I use all the time in my life as a creator and a designer. Um, Design intention defines the relationship between objects so that one propagates automatically to others, right? Now you're setting yourself up to connect the puzzle pieces. A design intention is you're taking different pieces of the puzzle and figuring out the best way for them to become a beautiful thing, right? When that happens, then you have structure. All of a sudden, your design intention creates the structure that holds the flow of the energy moving on the path of least resistance. So tension creates the path. Tension is a path maker, which I think is kind of sweet. It's kind of sweet. Um, and then to return to what we talked about just a second ago, then to retention, it's a continued possession. A retention is we hold on to that thing. We're going to revisit it. We're going to dream it bigger, dream it more, put more details in it. And in doing so, we attach emotionally to it. Now we can feel our dreams. We can feel it coming into being. So retention is
So,
that repeat, the act of absorbing and continuing to hold that substance.
as I'm thinking about that, and you've got your creation, and you're attached to it.
Mhm.
You raise the bar.
Yeah.
It stretches the tension between the bar and where you're at, and it will resolve, and it will draw you towards it. But as you are creating and you're building on top of, the bar goes up, the tension pulls things forward, and the creation ends up taking shape, just because you've put that creative tension there, just because you've set the goal out a little bit, you've raised the bar a little bit. And in doing that, it can be uncomfortable if your goal is way far out and it's just you can hardly see it. But if you set your goal, like in lenses, you set your goal for the week, then it moves the bar just there. That's your milestone, that's your marker. And you use a little bit of creative tension, not uncomfortable, but just enough to give you some of that push pull. You get yourself moving in that direction, get some momentum happening. Then you can move the bar out again and again and again, and you use the tension on purpose to pull yourself through to what you're trying to create.
Well, you said it a minute ago, Sarah, and I'm going to repeat it here again, is that we're going to use tension. We're going to introduce tension, reintroduce tension in a deliberate and purposeful way. We're going to choose it as opposed to react to it. And in doing so, this is when we can take our psychological tension, and that's a big thing, psychological tension, like, okay, what is that? Let's define that for a second. These are our limiting
That
beliefs.
is every awkward situation ever.
Oh man, every doubt,
Yep,
every hesitation,
yep.
every I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, all the self-sabotaging beliefs that we've talked about so many times. It's like, oh, where's that? And, oh, there's a tension attached to the past. So now if that psychological tension, now if we're going to soften and rearrange and maybe remove and replace with something else, a new psychological tension that's now anchored, instead of to the past, it's now anchored to the future, right? A new tension, choosing a new creative tension, adding a creative tension. And I think that's such a sweet, sweet opportunity in understanding tension so that you can use it as the tool that it is, as opposed to be the victim of it as it happens to you.
You're talking about we need tension in order to create the movement, and just a winch came to mind. If you don't keep the tension, when you hook that thing to the car, you can winch somebody out, but you need good tension on it or the hook will fall off and you
Right?
get nothing. So you
Yeah.
need some tension to get going. Then you get some momentum, then you get some movement, and it gets easier and easier. So if you're trying to winch yourself out of a tight spot,
Right.
you're going to need some kind of tension. You want it to be good tension. You don't want, like, I'm stuck in the mud kind of tension. You want the winch hook is on my car kind of
Mhm.
tension. So there's a difference.
Well, and I
Anyway,
think, this just popped into my head too, a new idea about tension in a positive way. Say that let's pretend you're single and there's somebody that you want to catch their attention, right? You want their attention. You want to, well, there's tension again. Attention.
attention.
Another one. um,
Oh, we could go all day on those.
oh
Oh,
my
wow.
gosh, it's
Okay.
so true.
We're
But all of a
catching
sudden, okay,
attention.
there's a romantic interest, right? How are you going to get yourself into the spotlight so that you're noticed by them, right? All of this romantic behavior,
I
flowers,
guess you're going to
love
catch
notes,
attention.
right?
You have to go get it, right? You're going to need to create some tension. That is exactly, you end up in these tense moments, and they can be by design or they can be purely created by everyone else because you've opted out. You opt out, putting your power, your intention into the situation. Everyone else's intention is there, and the most powerful one will resolve.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that ends up being, you're going to end up with accidental results. Like, life really does happen to you in those instances because, you end up with the tension resolving across the path of least resistance to the greatest or the strongest power. And so, back to the car in the mud with the winch, the mud's got tension holding the vehicle there, and the winch has tension on that hook, and the motor's going, and the strongest force is going to win in that scenario.
And you
So,
become unstuck,
right?
right? Right.
And so
So, yeah.
you end up with all of these accidental results when you have tension that got placed there. When you walk into a tense situation, if you don't participate, if you opt out of engaging, you could find yourself in the debris field of inconvenient, clumsy, unintentional, unwanted, unwelcome, and unplanned results.
Let's come back to love-hate relationship for a minute.
Oof.
right? Okay, now we're into this love-hate relationship. And, in the love it mentality is I love to hate this, or in the I can't stand it mentality, I hate loving this, right? There's an oscillating circle right there, going back and forth. Is it serving you? Is it helping you create? Is it keeping you in your old identity? Is it proving to you that you're the victim that you once were, right?
Oof.
Ooh, yeah, there's a
Ooh.
tension
Right?
there that's holding you in place. It's not letting you grow. It's a stake in the ground, a tether holding you back, right?
Yeah.
Ouchie, ouchie, right? And so then all of a sudden in that love-hate relationship, or that I'm not allowing myself to grow, I don't deserve it, then the goal then is to avoid responsibility and to refuse your own power. Avoid responsibility, refuse power.
Well,
Whoa,
if it,
that's
you
the
know,
tension.
Corey, that's a legitimate position. People are like, you know what? It's not me. It's
Mhm.
not me. I didn't do it. I didn't do a thing. Well, that's kind of why not? Why didn't you do a thing?
Right.
Why didn't you take your power and you create your own tension and you get yourself lined up for what you want? Right.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's nothing I can do. I can't help it. And then you've completely handed all of your power, all of your ability to affect change by creating your own tension in your own direction. You just give it away.
Right. So then where does the power lie? If you've given it away, where is it? And part of that is you're maintaining your power to be powerless. You've built your wall to say, I am not going to do anything. I'm going to stay still. I'm not going to grow, and I'm going to be miserable to prove it. We're going to prove it. Whoa, we prove it to ourselves. We talk ourselves into staying stuck, right? We can turn that same coin upside down, and take that same tool, that same tension, and put our focus on the end result, and then let that scale tip into dreaming more detail, feeling and emotionalizing more detail, so that the scale tips, our focus tips in the other direction, but without that clear, super clear end result, then we're into chaos. Like you mentioned a minute ago, Sarah, jumping into accidental
Highly,
results.
highly inconvenient most of the
So
time. At best. At best, it's very inconvenient.
inconvenient. And you said a minute ago, that list, clumsy and unintentional, right?
Unwanted, unwelcome, and unplanned. No,
Right.
thank you.
There's your
That's
victim
just a
mindset.
giant plate of no, thank you.
Right.
But
And
that's all
so,
you're gonna get if you don't engage and you don't use your power of creation, your ability to create purposeful tension. All you're gonna get is a giant plate of no, thank you.
yeah, yeah. So if that's going to be on one side of the rubber band in that metaphor, then the other side then becomes intention, creative tension, design intention, purposeful creative intention. Boom, there you go. Old habit, old reality, new habit, new reality, desired reality. Where are we going here? These are tools in the toolbox that we can learn and understand a little bit, and put more gravity and weight on the direction we want to go, as opposed to gravity and weight on what we're running away from, right?
A
Because
lot of times when you're in those situations, okay, back to the plate of no, thank you. I mean, you can sit and have the most epic pity party, you know, poor me. Look, I always get this. This always happens to me. This is just my lot in life. It's just what I get. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. And you can just completely opt out of actively participating in your own life. And it's not because you don't want to, it's because you have no idea how to do it differently. And so that's where we've got your back. Like, that's why this conversation is happening, because it's all too common to get stuck in those places and just to have all of these unintended consequences landing on you and life happening to you. And the key to getting yourself out of there is, first of all, you're not a victim to your circumstances. Once you see where your power is, then you got to get your power back. And then we'll show you how to set your tension up on purpose. And
Well,
that
right.
is just exactly the same as somebody showing you how to winch a truck out of the mud. There's tools, there's
I
a way
gotta
to
add
do it.
something. I gotta add something to that
Go
right
for
there,
it.
Sarah. Is because, as we're understanding creative tension and we're understanding and putting to use a conscious creation of our own life, right? When we're taking our power back, I think a big piece of that puzzle is to, as we look backwards at our growth and what got us here today, all of these old belief structures that got us here. There's a lot of gratitude and a lot of thankfulness. There might have been some pain and remorse and some hard times attached to that, but it got us here. We're living and breathing today, but as we look backwards, learning to take 100% full responsibility for your life as it is right now, right? When you surrender your victimhood in exchange for responsibility of who you are, when then all of a sudden, your wounding becomes your wisdom, all those things, those hurts, those pains, those aches, those difficult times created the values in that tender heart that got you where you are today, that's given you the strength to choose again, to create
That,
from a new place, to bring
that
creative tension onto the table, right? To
that's such
set
a
a new
big
path.
ask, Corey. That's a big ask
It is.
for people to ask people to take responsibility for where they're at is not to say they're taking responsibility for all of the occurrences and all of the randomness and all of the other tension that resolved to the point of most power. You're not taking responsibility for that, but you take responsibility for getting yourself organized away from it. And part of that is to do just that, have that gratitude and find your silver linings, find your wisdom, your lessons, just pack up what's useful
Yeah.
and get out of there.
Well, all of our decisions, all of our reactions have a true positive intent. One person's
Everything does, yeah.
actions could be totally opposite and different and contradictory to someone else's actions, but both of those characters in the story are defending something true and dear to their heart. It's where they are on their path. They're doing the best they can with the tools they have in the moment, right? And what I'm talking about, taking responsibility for your life, the one thing that we totally have control over is our reactions to things. We have the ability to think about what we want to think about. We have the ability to choose how to respond, and it
We
takes
also
focus, it
have
takes
the
practice.
ability, we have the ability to assign meaning, and that that little detail that can get to be a thorn in people's side, like
Again.
for me, I look at a situation, it's like, well, what's that mean for me?
Mhm,
And then I might decide that in a nanosecond, and it stays with me for 10 years
mhm.
because that's what it meant.
Or something happens in memory one or memory two, or
Mhm.
in 5 lifetimes ago, that we're still
Right?
carrying those beliefs forward today. And those aren't even ours, but they're controlling us, some of those things. So here's some old psychological tension, some old built-in and installed behaviors from long ago, from old traumas or passed down honored family beliefs, right? Or triggers or unhealed wounds from past lives. But here we are at this lovely place where, one, we gain an understanding that we get to change, that we get to grow and evolve, and that we get to have some say in how that happens. We get to fill in the adverbs, We get to fill in the nouns. We get to decorate it with our conscious choices of right now. So our old story versus our new story. Old story, new story. So one of my questions there, especially with tension, is what has more focus? What's getting more than half of the focus? You know, is what you're running away from getting 60% of your attention, or is it getting 30% of your attention? Right? Creating tension. Where's your
It's
focus?
common enough to be facing your story and even needing to assign some level of meaning or some level of justification. You know, we're kind of programmed. We're programmed to be looking for meaning and looking for reason and trying to think things through all the time, and there's got to be a reason, and so you can get very, very focused on your old story where you're trying to, you know, pull pieces out and rearrange them to make it make sense, make it be okay. And that's one strategy, but you can actually trim off the story and just, can you be okay right now because you are? That's a good place to start. Can
Yeah.
you just trim the story down? It doesn't need to necessarily, it can be beside you, doesn't, you don't need to be hanging on to it. But can you be here now and know what you know and be who you are without having all of that meaning and reason and justification, proving to yourself all of these thoughts, beliefs, emotions, all of that stuff from before.
Mhm.
If you practice just setting it aside for even a moment and just being here now, can you find a place now where you're okay, right?
Correct. Yeah. You know, I love to talk about the old story and the new story, you know, because one, this implies the dream, you know, and those of you who know me, I want to hang out in dream space because that is the ultimate way to create, you know, but I want to talk, you know, about, um, you know, change requires the tension. Tension makes the path, right? We're going to dream the dream, our old story versus our new story. I always am fascinated, like when you're talking to somebody and say, hey, you know, what do you want? And it's so easy for them to go, well, not this and 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 this. Just like that. They've got it rehearsed. Just like that. It's like, well, I asked you what you want. And they, I don't know. Well, I
I
don't know.
know what I don't want, and they repeat the list.
Right. You know, so
Mhm.
once again, there's the focus on the old story, which, as we know in conscious education, if you're focused on the old story, you get more of it. It's important to realize what you don't want because that tells you what you do. Like if you're not saying no, you're saying yes, right? I mean, but do we do the dream work to actually know what we want? Have we seen the details? And then the details beyond those details? Have we seen the emotions that come when we start to go, oh, that dream makes me so, and then what would happen if, and then I would be there with these people in that place doing these things, and I feel amazing right now, as opposed to,
Yeah,
I
but
hate this
then
and this
to
and
get
this.
there, Corey, you can be in that end result and it's just magically delicious.
Yeah, it is.
But then the very next question we ask is, where are you at now? And that yanks you, that snaps, I think that's the expression, snaps you back to reality.
Right.
But really it's not. It's like, if like an archer who's like shooting an arrow,
I love that.
right? And you
Yeah.
just, you're locked and loaded and you're in this, oh, that's going to be great, and then somebody pulls it back,
Mhm.
right? And that tension is purposeful. That tension is on purpose, and it's got a reason, and it was placed there deliberately to shoot that arrow in the direction it is going. So
Control.
when we're talking about tension, You can have all of that uncomfortable tension and tension from elsewhere, but if you set up that bow and arrow, you set up that tension and you pull back on it, you get enough power between your current and your desired, and you really pull back on that bow. That tension is your creative tension, and that tension can feel similar because it's all tension. But if you put it there deliberately, you'll recognize that it's deliberate tension. That is an inspiration, that is drive, that is focus, and that is, I could call it pressure. And that tension, you can sit in that tension, and just like the archer's just waiting for his target, right? You've got it held back and you're like, wait for it, and you hold the tension until the time is just right to let it fly.
I,
And
I say I love the metaphor of the archer, because one, there's the tension, the pressure to launch your rocket of desire in the right direction. But when you've got the bow and you've got the arrow and it's lined up, that means you're also looking down the straightness of the arrow toward your end result.
and you're aligned.
You're aligned and in focus with your end result. There's something so lovely about that metaphor that, let's invite the cosmic archer to our dream circles.
Oh, I'm liking the cosmic archer, because the other piece of that as well is you have to draw the arrow back a bit. You have to hold yourself back a bit while you take a minute and line up your shot. You need to hold yourself back and align it. You need to be in tension. You need to build your tension. There's all of these little things in preparation for getting your momentum forward. And when it's all lined up, that arrow just flies.
Intend, re-intend, absolutely. The repetitiveness of the dreaming comes in here. Target practice. We launch our rockets of desire to our future again and again and again, and each time with a little more detail. And each time with a dream that just got a little bit more, a little bit bigger. Every time that we revisit our dreams, we launch that rocket of desire with more, with dreams 2 and 3 that start to come into focus when we do this often enough, when we're doing our dream work with our intentions.
If you're the arrow and you let that fly, if you're the arrow, you've got the possibilities are so expanded from that perspective, right? Because then you're up there and you're like, oh, well, now I want to go a little further. Now I want to do that, or now I want to over here. And you can repurpose existing tensions, existing forces. You can use those energies to steer yourself. You've got to get your momentum and you've got to get a general direction. Specific direction is better, but even a general direction to get going, right? Just to get some movement and purposeful movement.
So are you willing to surrender your victim mindset in exchange for your creator mindset?
I don't know, Corey. What?
Are you willing?
Really?
Maybe.
Surrender the victim mindset.
Put her down.
I don't know. Tell me surrender.
Surrender. Well, what that means to me in this context is take your power back from your victim mindset. Let her sit down back in her chair, put a blanket, give her a blanket, go to sleep. That's what, once again, that's one of the tools that got us here. It's a part of who we are. That doesn't vanish when we put it down. It gives us gravity and values when we take our power and look the other direction and say, all right, I'm no longer going to behave in this old way because I'm aware it's no longer serving me. Right?
See, now that is a different, I didn't hear it that way when you first said it, because you're like surrender. And I'm like, oh, I don't do that. Like what?
Mhm.
but if you're asking your inner victim to surrender
Mhm.
to your own warrior, your own power, your own
I like that.
planner, your own dreamer, like the whole team. It's if you're saying, surrender the victim mindset, that yes.
Mhm.
I mean, there's something to be said. I mean, you're getting something out of it when you're in that mode, but the benefits outweigh hanging out in victim mindset for sure.
I'd
Well,
So,
say
especially when you're
that,
hungry.
I'd say that for me, the surrender is at a point of being in a victim is the surrender is gratitude, because the gratitude gives space. So you're not, for me, you're not really surrendering the victim. You're surrendering into gratitude. Gratitude for water, glass of water a day, fresh air, your eyesight. So for me, surrender is gratitude, because I think the gratitude opens space. Surrender is giving an unworthiness to the story, which it was very worthy and it's full of golden nuggets. And so you're kind of saying thank you to the victim. Because as soon as you say thank you to the victim, you release it. Because you're not holding on to it anymore. So
so then if we use that, which I like, that one sits well with me. So if surrender is a simple release in gratitude,
yeah, release to
then if you have a release in gratitude, if that's how we use the word surrender, then I like the word surrender a whole lot more than give up and go home kind of surrender that you see in, like, in the media, right?
well,
Like
it's a
that kind of,
yeah, I'd say it's a strange combination of words, surrender, victim, because
right? It is.
I think the combination is quite bizarre. So for me, listening to you, wonderful, beautiful lovebirds, is I feel that what came up for me was that I just felt I wanted to sit in gratitude while you were saying that, and I wanted the space to be able to sit there in the light, because when you're in the victim, it's you can't see anything else. There is no space. There is no space at all. It's so muddy, you can't see the wood for the trees. Well, that was my experience.
Sure.
Um, so to surrender the victim wasn't possible,
Mhm.
because the victim was all, because I didn't even see the victim.
Right.
Whereas when I move it to gratitude and I'm getting up in the morning and I'm saying, hey, I really love that glass of water today. And then I'm going to bed and I'm saying, oh, you know what? I could see really blue sky today in the sun, and that was great. And those really, really small steps, I think, just open the space of the victim. So for me, surrender and victim as a combination doesn't work. But as
Well,
a
the
gratitude
sentence,
and release of victim, that for me works as a kind of positive step forward.
so the
Just
combination that we used, Emma, and if you could speak to this, was to surrender the victim mindset in exchange for the creator mindset.
I don't think you exchange it. I don't think it's an exchange. I think it's a journey. It's like a flow of energy. I think it's a natural flow. I don't think you exchange. I think you flow, because as you give release and light and golden nuggets and take that on board, part of that comes with you. So
Mhm.
you don't exchange. You just flow. It's like if you're
But
talking
that
about,
again, that's the tension. It's from one polarity, the victim, to the creator. Is there's a tension structure set up when you intend,
yeah, I
right?
wouldn't use the
So
word exchange.
so yeah, so yes, you flow from closer to one than the other.
Yes,
Okay, I love that.
I just
I think
say
there's a piece of this too, part of the definition of surrender that I think is missing in this conversation is allowance. Because I
Yeah.
think there's an unsaid assumption that surrender means failure. And I think when I
Or
first
to
brought
give
this
up.
up, mine was surrender was to step back and allow something else to occur. And often we surrender to save ourselves,
I
right?
think it's just that particular word is probably loaded through the ages with
Sure it is.
all kinds of energy and all kinds of triggering possibilities, because I wasn't expecting to hear it when you said it. I wasn't expecting to hear it that way, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, Corey, what are you telling me surrender about?
Well, that's why I
And
chose that word,
I know,
That's exactly
and
why I chose that word, because I knew it would create some conversation and clarity around the assumptions that come with that story, especially with another trigger word next to it called victim.
right? And
Yeah.
all of the words are words, but they've
Words.
got energies around them, they've got stories around them, they're built into our DNA. If we're from, you know, uh, all of the energy that builds up, or the morphogenic field around the words fascinates me. And then the definitions that pop, or how people take words or not. I love to play with the definitions of words. You know
Well, I
this.
just love that, just by this one little example, I've been monitoring the tension in the room for the last 5 minutes, which has been like,
Yes,
whoa,
right?
right? Perfect example of the power that tension has, especially when it's unintentional.
Right.
It's just
And
as powerful when it's intentional, right? All of a sudden we can use that,
exactly.
they take the unsureness and trade it for being sure,
And so in the spirit of what we were talking about, and this idea of flow from victim closer to creator, and allowing the movement, takes me back to, river and riverbanks. The structure of our session here, the structure of our conversation keeps things hemmed in, and that will direct the flow. You can direct it, you can put structure around your intention to direct the flow in the way that you are wanting things to resolve.
Right.
And so those kinds of metaphors, those kinds of images are just used to invite your mind to consider how these things could apply to your life now, and what tools do you really have available to you, because there's quite a few, and you want to always check yourself on definitions. And I'm going to say it, the intention of the words when they're used versus how they were received, because there's almost always a discrepancy there, and that is good to be aware of in your daily. Is just when you hear someone use a word here or a word there, notice what meaning you've assigned to the word, what meaning you've assigned, what metaphors you've attached to it. There's story all over the place, right?
Perception.
So I just love that, you can take tension, even if it was tension from elsewhere, or it was tension created by others, and you can still put structure in place to direct it,
Mhm.
right?
So perceptual life experience. Those are three words I love together. Perceptual life experience. How are we perceiving life as it happens to us, around us? Where are we powerful? Where are we not powerful? How are you experiencing life? Do things happen to you, right? And then how do you choose to react? How do you react? Is it in victimhood? Or did your problem become a challenge and it just becomes the next cool thing we get to work on? You know, Exactly. So that gets me to this question, in an old mindset, what was your predominant creating force before?
Yeah, if it wasn't you, then
What was it?
what was running the show? I'm gonna say religion.
Jobs, family,
Your family, yeah,
Fear.
family,
fear,
fear. Oh, that's a
then
good one.
and
The
story,
media, the media, they can
media,
run the show.
tribe, right? The people around
Yeah.
you, work
Your
culture,
own story, your own perception of your own story can be directing.
your own
Like, who's
community.
the director?
Mhm.
Predominant creator. Like,
Right.
yeah, your
Mhm.
ego. There's another one coming in on the chat. Yes.
Ego, yeah.
So when you're choosing to be the predominant creative force in your own life and you're choosing to take that power, where was it? Like, and did you even notice? Did you notice what was the predominant creative force in your life? Because something was, and if it wasn't you, who did you give your power to? And was it always there from birth or before? Like, was it family or religion or a structure you were born into? Or did you go out and look for a new structure and give your power away all over again?
Mhm.
Because that happens.
It sure does. When you think about when we
Uncomfortable.
were teenagers
It
and
does.
rebelling against our parents, like
Yep.
I'm going to go out there and stand alone on the globe as a young 18-year-old, right? I'm going to create my own structure, as clumsy as that might be, but I'm going to do it anyway, right?
Yeah. But then 5 years later, you're in a relationship and you hand your power over to your spouse
Mhm.
or your kids or your job. Your
Or a
job.
diagnosis.
Oh, your yikes. Yep, your diagnosis. There it is. So interesting to notice, to just see how the tension structures around these outside forces, these can actually become the predominant creative force in your life when you opt out of your own power.
Mhm.
I think it's quite eye-opening to visit that inside yourself.
Right. So part of the stuff that I love in this work is when we talk about the science and we talk about the research and we talk about, Uncle Joe Dispenza and his good research and the work of Dr. Flint and all of these amazing people with these amazing bodies of work, and they talk about the laws of nature, and so one of the things that I looked up getting ready for this call today was, okay, well, let's look up the laws of tension. The laws of tension. So what did I come up with today was Newton's third law of motion, which reads, when a body exerts a force on a second body, the second body exerts an equal force in the opposite direction back into the original body. It's equal and opposite forces. Once again, there's the rubber band. There's the tension. Like all of a sudden, there's this opposing force. Somewhere it's equal, and then somewhere it's not, and then it fails. It goes one way or it goes the other. But there's that moment in the middle when tension is created. Tension seeks resolution. It's not going to be in tension forever. It's going to be in tension until it's done. So I think that's kind of an amazing thing to think about. I love that the laws of science give us permission to change and grow, especially if we may be having a hard time doing just that.
Okay, so like you've got things that are just fact. There's like a power that just is, okay, whether it's a relationship, a belief, it's a whatever it is. Well, example of an airplane. Gravity keeps the airplane on the ground, and that's just a fact. And it's widely accepted that gravity is going to hold that airplane onto the surface of the earth, and there it is.
And there's a
And
tension right
so,
there.
right, it's right there. So you've got you've got that force acting on the plane. It's like, but if you really want to do something different, maybe you want the plane to go up in the sky, you've got to counter gravity. So you can do that with momentum. You can do that with fuel. You could do that with lift. You can do that with drive, right? And so you have to get a certain momentum, a certain velocity, get that in motion. And then you can counter gravity with the laws of lift, right? But
Yes.
you need fuel. And for us as human beings, when we want to counter a big force that appears to be immovable, it's not necessarily immovable if you fuel yourself with knowledge, with good food, with nutrition, with energy, with love, with light. Then you get yourself moving in a direction. You gain momentum, you gain velocity. You will get yourself up over that mountain, and you can be that airplane. Like, you can go and do that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who just get overwhelmed when they look at that mountain in front of them and say, I don't know. And they feel stuck. They're in the mud. They can't do. There are all of these tools and all of these ways to set tension, to give yourself momentum, to add energy, to add what you need to be moving forward. And as coaches, that's what we do. We provide that extra push, the extra movement, the momentum. We keep your momentum going. We
Well, we
fuel
can
you,
provide some structure when it's not there so that the flow can happen.
right?
That's what this class is about today, is to make sure that we're understanding that we can set some tension to create the steps, to create resolution, to involve change in a conscious way. Another one of those examples of setting tension on purpose is in the magnetic mind, where all of a sudden we have our current reality and our desired reality. There's some tension. Then there's the metaphor of the flowing river that's contained inside the river banks, and the flow goes downhill, gravity's on its side. And then when the resistant boulders come up, then we have a focus to work on the resistance to the flow of the water already moving downhill. Another quick example, to put it into every one of our couple of times a day, is hunger. All of a sudden we're hungry. Our body is needing to be nourished and give it fuel. And if we don't do that, we're going to eventually slow down and stop, right? But all of a sudden when we're hungry and we feed ourselves with the right things, there's a difference between being full and being satisfied. You can eat a bunch of sugar and garbage and be full and still be hungry for the vitamins and minerals of a salad and a piece of trout, right? But there's the tension again. I'm hungry, I'm going to go get the food, and then boom, it's resolved. We do that again at a small scale, again and again and again, which I think is kind of a sweet way to make the laws of tension tangible and understandable, so that then we can outreach those same beliefs into what we're trying to create for ourselves, what we're trying to build and make for ourselves, right? And so as we think about testing the theory of setting tension for ourselves, what do you want? What are you choosing? What is want now instead of what is accidental and unwanted and clumsy? Now now it's chosen, it's wanted, it's welcomed, planned, and purposeful, right? We're going to start from there. Now, automatically, the emotions attached to what is wanted and purposeful, automatically you're starting from a much higher vibration than, oh my God, this happened to me and it's a mess and woe is me, or whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Whatever
But
that is.
really, I mean, you can take this information, this whole conversation, and see if you can find even if you try a small area of your life, just say, okay, I'm going to test this out. I'm going to try it. And I'm going to want this thing to change. I'm going to put a little bit of structure around it. And I'm going to purposefully create tension and see it resolve in that direction. And see if you can find an area of your life where you can, put the theory to test. It does work. We know it works.
Mhm.
But if you're curious and you want to give it a try, to pick a small thing.
Make it
Do it
doable.
this week. Yes. And just do it.
I mean, one of the things that someone in a victim mindset would easily do is to choose a goal that was impossible to achieve, to make sure that they did not grow at all, to prove
Well,
it to
you got to
themselves.
prove it, right?
Mhm.
You're going to
So
prove
this is
your,
the power of small steps. The power of baby steps is humongous. Like then when the butterfly comes out of the chrysalis, he can't fly for a while, right? But it's a monumental baby step, an essential step, right? But imagine how it could be whatever it is you're choosing to create. Is it more desirable? Is it attractive? Does it improve your circumstances from one point to another because it would make you happy? It would bring joy into your world. It would make it a little brighter, some glitter, unicorns, and rainbows, perhaps.
yeah, do it. It matters.
Mhm.
It matters, whatever it is. If there's something that just make me happy.
Yeah.
See if you can affect change on a small scale with just this piece of information. And when you want to get started on the bigger stuff, then absolutely, we are here. We've got, speaking of that, Corey, we should mention that the Genius Hub lesson is on Saturday, same time, same channel.
Mhm.
And we're going to be doing a recap and a discussion of the Magnetic Mind Masterclass Lesson 1. We're going to be doing questions and answers.
His values, I
And
believe, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
and we're going to be just talking about how that applies to your real life.
Right.
So you are welcome to join. Anybody in the Genius Hub is welcome to join us there. And if you're not a member of the Genius Hub, then get in touch with one of us on Superconscious Creators and we'll let you know how that works.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
thanks everybody so much for coming today. And yeah, that was a really expansive tension discussion, I guess.
Well, before we close it up, let's go around the room and just say, hey, where are you at, everybody? Like, what are some takeaways from what we just talked about? Like, what's going on in the room today? Where are you at? How's it going? Anybody want to chime in? Anyone?
I thought it was great. I love
Right
that
on.
you talked about triggers and that brought up loads of things and it challenged the way we were all thinking. So yeah, I love you even more than I loved you before.
Well, and just so
Thank
that you all know,
you.
Emma is one of our Magnetic Mind coaches. I mentioned the others at the beginning of the call, and then Emma snuck in the back door.
So we've got Ginny. Did you want to say hello as well? Ginny's here.
Hi everyone. Like Emma, I thought it was great. It was just a nice reminder that where often people think life happens to them. So, I love, getting, not becoming a victim of your circumstances. So I think it's always good to remember that. So thank you. Beautiful session.
Thank you. And Kim is here. Kim is another Magnetic Core coach. Hi, Kim. Thoughts, feedback?
Ooh, long time listener, love your show. As a matter of fact, I did a recode inside the Genius Hub yesterday, exactly what you guys were talking about, not letting life affect you. Start affecting life, right?
Yeah,
So,
I know you did. That was very inspirational to us. You were in their Genius Hub doing that recode, and I thought, oof, we better get over to Super Conscious and have a little chat about all that.
So, and I love that you talked about how the tension and how creating that tension and being in the tension, being that pull towards your desired result is so right on. And if it wasn't for that tension and the recognition of how it worked and how the whole system works, the working structure works, I would not be where I am this moment in the Florida Keys. If anybody doesn't know me, I was born and raised in Wisconsin, and I've been trying to move to Florida for 26 years. I started the program at the end of May, and here we are. I'm spending the entire month of January in the Florida Keys, looking for my new home. So
You're no longer
we would not
trying.
lie to you.
Living the dream.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. I don't mean trying. Today I'm trying because it's rainy and cold. So the weather is trying to me. That's what I'm trying today. So thank you all for coming, and this is great. Good job, you guys. Good job.
Any
Thank you.
aha moments? Anybody? Any inspirations or takeaways? Anybody else?
I was actually thinking about structural tension right before this call. So, like, I've been trying to maintain that structural tension in my life, and I've been doing my meditations with the setting the intention for the day. But I noticed that doesn't really build the tension as much. I mean, it's good for before you do your lenses, but I don't know if you guys have any advice.
To build the tension more tangibly,
Yeah.
then what I would typically go the route of picking like when you're on your lenses, pick a closer target and ramp up the tension where that just needs to get done, where it's just the next step. Where, when you're in momentum, when you're walking and you've already lifted your foot, it's got to come down. So get yourself in that movement where you have to take the next step, and then you have to take the next one. And if you reel it in and make it closer, then that will put some more immediate force on pushing you into your next step, or rather pulling you into your next step.
I think a
Right.
part of that too is so much of our hesitation or moving slow comes from only having taken our dream work so far. The more we will focus on what it is we want to create and with another set of beautiful details. And then we repeat and revisit that dream, and we go deeper and discover even more fancy details of where we're going. And then now we're 4 layers into new details to the old dream. And all of a sudden it starts happening around us. All right. And then the old hesitations start to fall away, and we get excited about things that are happening because we're proving to ourselves that our focus is manifesting. We actually start proving to ourselves that our focus is it's turning thoughts into things.
And there's a lot of parts and aspects of us that need that proof.
We do.
Which, calling back to test it out on something little, show yourself, reassure yourself that this works. This is how to create, instead of facing that mud puddle and pulling on your old life. Turn around and take a look at what you're creating and set your tension up there, and it will pull you towards it.
Especially when you're looking at where you're going.
Yeah, can I add something to that? I'd say, Patrick, that if you step into how you want to feel for the next step in that structure, and just because you love it, then it will take you to the place that the achievement will just fall. the step will just fall into the right place because you're taking it from the heart. And then if you just allow where it falls, then your ego isn't controlling it. You're actually just allowing where that place should fall. And it might not look exactly how you think, but it might be better for you. You see what I mean? So
Yeah, I love
sometimes
that.
when you try and control it all, then the step never is necessarily the step, but it might not be the best step for you.
That's such an important
step.
distinction, Emma, where you're like, you can take the step, but that doesn't mean you get to like where your foot actually falls on that step. That's not your focus. Your focus is on taking the step. And
How you
so
feel.
in
Just what you
movement,
feel.
that's
Yeah,
really,
I'd say it's how you feel in that step.
yeah.
Even if it's really small and you go, okay, I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel joy. I want to feel, this is what I want to feel when I have that step. And then that put that into the structure. And then your mind's eye will always be where you want to go because that's what you've focused on. But how you feel will let it flow. And then you'll flow into it. And I think it might be less rigid. That would be my comment.
I love that.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Emma.
I'm Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
That's how I won this course. And so that's how I won the course, is by just following my bliss and aligning with it. So I actually do what he does, but I don't have the 2 point and the sword of truth to get to your sword of truth. And I'm an energy healer. So but he has a structure, and so I just channel. I'm a medium, and so I find it very interesting. So my tensions has been learning his structure.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Chris?
Yes, I'm talking about Chris, magnetic mind, the whole concept. Because I was a rock star at Matrix Energetics. I just walk in Reiki. Oh, I've done this before, past life. I'm a multi-dimensional communicator. I speak light language and dance it, the frequency. But that's how I won, is that I just started researching everything, my bliss points on Facebook, and I just, you just take a step. It's like, I know there's something out there that can help me already do what I do, but has structure. And so I created my own tension. And so I just started taking steps and asking all of these programs out there, that people were contacting me because of what I do and such. And I just said, oh, well, I didn't know anything about it. And I applied, and I'm like, oh, this feels good. And I did it, and I won.
So there. So you had this circumstance, you want to take it in a particular direction. You create your own tension and it pulled you into it.
Yeah.
So prime example of everything we've been talking about for the last hour.
Right.
You create your
So,
tension.
Lori, what's your next challenge?
Right.
My next challenge is passing the test. And so that's my next challenge. I'm gonna pass the test.
Awesome. And you know what, Lori, your closest obvious action should be to come to my practice session tonight.
What time?
Don't worry, honey.
We'll
I'll
let you
get a
know,
hold of
Lori.
you. I'll
Don't
find
you
you.
worry.
Yeah, we'll get you included.
Awesome.
Righty. Well, this has been an amazing little over an hour together working on tension, definitions of tension, intention, retention.
Yeah, I have something. Sorry.
Oh, please.
So today actually it's so interesting how everything is you guys talked about it, because like I was between, like there is something that I was like, I'm surrendering. Okay, I have my project working on, I have my family other side working on, I have so many other things all over, like my energy all over. Which way I can go is still, I'm looking at my list of my lenses, but it's still not making it exactly the way true choices. I'm kind of a little bit, it was like then you guys talking of this, like I'm recognizing something completely different. Like I am truly get out of that me and I am whatever that I'm looking for. No, it was so good point today. It was like really, I was like, okay, this is the confirmation now. I just go for it.
Oh, thanks so
Yeah.
much, Mindy. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Welcome home, Mindy.
Good.
Yeah, I just like say, Laurie, you are perfect timing right now. I'm so much like you. I've been energy healer and channeler and been doing a lot of work like you. But our structure, which is I could not stand. And structure is always, I did not like structure. That's why I did the last year, almost 9 months year work for Landmark, whole leadership program and everything. Because of a structure, without a structure, we really can't go because our energy all over. It's just when you don't have structure, really, you losing so much gift and talents, time, money, energy everywhere because you just don't know what's going on. You have no control. The structure really makes everything like that tall. It's like bulletproof. There is no one can get away from you following it. That's what I see right now.
Oh, it's so good. Thank you for sharing that, Mindy. I see those same parallels in my own journey. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Jim, did you have any feedback for us? Any takeaways from this?
The only thing that, excuse me, that can't talk right now.
Good to see you, Jim. I'm glad you're with us.
The airplane metaphor that you used, my mind immediately went to that's an oscillating structure because that plane is only going to stay up for so long. But otherwise, everything else landed with me.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I need to think on that again.
Yeah.
It is only gonna but I guess it does need continued fuel, continued momentum.
Yeah, at some point,
It's
it's
only
got to
gonna
come
stay
down.
up as long as it's got that velocity and that drive and that fuel, right?
Right.
I guess hunger has that same oscillation.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there's
Good
something
food
there
for
about
thought,
holistically
speaking of
intent.
food.
Yeah, to revisit.
And Karen, we haven't heard from you, Karen. Do you have any feedback for us? Any takeaways?
Some of it probably went over my head a bit. I like to use simple words. That's just me.
Right.
I've never. And I think personal example for me is a really good. It gives you a greater understanding because then you can see how it kind of applies within your life. Surrender for me is really about releasing, letting go, and like I get that. I know that I'm still in that victim state because every time I want to move forward, it rears its ugly head. But on the same token, I'm in that space of I'm in a really good space at the moment in the sense of it's been a big year for personal growth. This time last year, I was in a job. Well, I'm still in the same job, but I was receiving a lot of harassment. And whilst it was a real shit to go through, it actually created a really magnificent shift for me. It was like, it's that catalyst for change. And you got, as you say, we take you with you. So you have to be able to manage where you are now and be comfortable in that space and manage your personal boundaries, manage who you are. But, still, taking those steps forward still creates anxiety, and there's still that have to be perfect, and so it's a process. And I like the fact that smaller steps bring it back. That was really cool. I think that's a way to go because you sort of think when you have that bigger picture, it's also a bit of a cop out as well, as you, you know, because it's so
Yeah,
far
it
away.
keeps it up. It keeps it up in
Yeah,
the sky. It keeps it a pipe
yeah,
dream, right?
yeah.
And it's like,
So,
oh no, I
yeah.
don't want to land that entirely because I don't know how.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and so I think, you know, that's a really good thing to bring that right back in. And whilst that's also terrifying, I think it's really, really good. And I think, you know, and make it small. I think it's a really, really cool thing to do.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's good. It's in, yeah. And I think for it's learning how to create that tension, because I don't feel like I'm in tension at the moment.
Right.
I've kind of happy in my own space.
Well, I
And
think there's
I
an
don't know if that's a
assumption,
lull.
right? There's an assumption that tension is a bad thing. You know, like I'm so tense in my muscles, like, but how do we switch that in our mind to where tension is the very thing? It's the golden goodies. It's the path maker. Yeah.
Right.
And I think, you know, we are so used to having to being in a space of stress.
Mhm.
You know, like I think our society creates that. And that's one of the things that really, really came out for me is creating a space for myself every day where I release my tension, I detox from my day. And that started to create a shift where I could detense myself, you know, and that has
Excellent.
led to a whole new thing. So yeah.
Well, that's part of
That's
one of the tools
fantastic.
of the ideal day too, making sure that your every day is your ideal day where you step into that space, right? Every day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You gotta be
I
happy
love
where
that.
you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You know, my job, I would say, is far from perfect. I work with someone who's passive aggressive and gaslights, and it's been really, really good because I'm actually able to create my own power back, you know, and actually learning to create my own boundaries. And, you know, so whilst it's been really challenging and a lot of mental struggle, and brought up a lot of shit as it does.
Bravo.
It's also been a really good growth stuff as well.
Well, thanks so much, Karen. That's
Yeah.
really wonderful. I'm really happy for you. That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
It's well on
really
track.
cool.
And Connor, we haven't heard from you. Welcome.
Thank you. Just to introduce myself, I'm Connor from Ireland, and I joined Magnetic Mind back in August. Prior to that, I had, like most people, I imagine last year was a bit challenging. So Magnetic Mind course came up for me, and I was looking for some direction.
Excellent.
Yeah, so now, so I had that tension, found Magnetic Mind. Now I've progressed. I've just purchased the certification course, so I'm now on that track. So I'm grateful to be here. And
well, welcome. We're really,
the
really
invite.
glad you found us.
Yeah, where in Ireland are you, Connor?
I'm in the northwest of Ireland, Donegal.
Oh, great. Yeah, I tell you, I would love to come back and spend some time in Ireland. The last time I was there, I was there for 6 weeks last time and had an absolute lovely, lovely, beautiful time. You live in a very beautiful place.
It is. It's stunning. I live between the mountains and the sea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very grateful.
Well, I'll meet you for a pint one of these days.
Indeed. Indeed, you'll be very welcome. I'll be your tour guide. Thank you for having me, and I'll surely be back.
Reach out to us any old time, Connor, you know, especially on the certification stuff, you know, reach out. We're here for you. Tribe is such an important piece of that journey. Yeah, that's what brought us all together, for sure.
I'm brand new. I've just signed up this week, so I'm finding my way around.
Well, welcome home, brother. You're in for a really good ride.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got you, man. We got you.
It's an exciting journey.
Sweet.
Well, thank you everybody for joining. And I'm just going to end the recording here now.
Welcome home, everybody. Be well.
Thank you, guys.